Alex. I appreciate your work. The Word of God at Exodus 20:13 precisely reveals His will with a simple command. It's actually a commandment, and it's expressed in the negative. It says, "Thou shalt not murder." As Jody said, murder is the intentional destruction of an innocent human life. And since life itself is a gift of the Creator, the authority to terminate life is reserved by the Creator to Himself. He has, again, through His revealed word, made provision for civil government, also ordained by Him, to exercise capital punishment for wrongdoing, such as the willful and intentional destruction of human life. Now, the American philosophy of government, including its purpose and its authority and its limitations and the duties and obligations of its officers and its citizens, rests on the belief that the Creator God is the source of all law, and that He is, as a supreme judge of the universe, the obligations that we as human beings owe to Him are superior to any other obligations. Sir William Blackstone, in his commentaries on the Law of England, expressed it like this. He said, "Man, considered as a creature, must necessarily be subject to the law of his Creator, and it is necessary that he should in all points conform to his Maker's will. This will of the Maker is called the law of nature." Jefferson used this same language from Blackstone in the Declaration of Independence. He talked about the law of nature and nature's God. He was paraphrasing Blackstone. Blackstone goes on to say, it is binding, this law of God, it's superior in obligation to all others, and it's binding over all the globe, in all countries, at all times, and no human laws are of any validity if contrary to this. Now, this is where I'm going to politely and respectfully disagree with Jody, who said that, who used the phrase that abortion is legal, and you can see I don't really disagree with her, but I'm going to take a different little tact on that. The destruction of innocent preborn children is obviously contrary to this, that is to say, the will of the Maker. It's obviously contrary to the express will of God. And no matter what any court or legislature has said in the past, abortion is contrary to the commandment of God and has never been legal. It's never been legal. And no matter what any court or legislature may say now, or for that matter any executive, abortion is not legal. And no matter what any court or legislature may say in the future, abortion will still never be legal. Simply stated, abortion violates the eternal standard of right and wrong, which no man has the authority to set aside. But there's also an earthly standard which is violated by the practice of abortion. The very first sentence of the Constitution begins thus. It says, Article 1, Section 1 says, all, let me just stop right there. What does all mean? All means all. It says all legislative power, that is to say lawmaking authority, lawmaking power, herein granted is vested in a Congress, which it goes on to say how Congress is formulated. So, ladies and gentlemen, if all lawmaking power is vested in the legislative branch of the federal government, then absolutely zero lawmaking authority is left over to be in any other branch. Remember, all means all. I had a teacher once that said all means all, and that's all means. Therefore, courts, which are not part of the legislative branch, cannot make law. Courts cannot make law. You have been brainwashed. I have been brainwashed to believe that they can. I have had the experience many times of explaining this to people, explaining the legality of this, that courts do not make law, and having people understand it, and then 3 minutes later not understand it. And I believe that's because of an intense, repetitious brainwashing on the part of our culture. That's for another subject. But this means, if courts cannot make law, this means that Roe v. Wade, or whatever the opinion in Roe v. By the way, at the top of the page it says opinion, not law. cannot be law because it is the product of the judicial branch. So Roe v. Wade, this is my message to legislators, Roe v. Wade is no barrier to the Maryland General Assembly to the introduction and passage of legislation protecting the life of innocent human children. Let me repeat that, please. Roe v. Wade is no barrier to the Maryland General Assembly to the introduction and passage of legislation protecting the life of innocent human children. That's the first point I want you to remember. The second point is this. By sponsoring and adopting the legislation being discussed today, you're not breaking any law. You, in fact, will be validating the law. By sponsoring and adopting this legislation, you will be restoring lawful government. You will not be doing anything that is revolutionary. You will be doing something that is restorative. Like the English nobles at Runnymede in 1215, who confronted King John and convinced him to sign the Magna Carta, you will be taking part in the restoration of a lawful order that declares and protects God-given rights. Like the brave and determined passengers who landed in Plymouth and signed the Mayflower Compact, you will be declaring your allegiance to a form of government that protects the righteous and punishes the wicked, not the other way around. Finally, my point number 3. This is your duty. You have never sponsored legislation that is as important as this. You have no higher responsibility than to protect the innocent children that you represent. You will have no greater honor in your public life than to use your rightful authority to interpose on behalf of precious and innocent children whose very life depends on your commitment to your sworn duty. So I ask you to give the following speakers and this panel and this legislation your careful attention regarding the details and the strategy for the adoption of this bill. And please remember, regardless of your brainwashing, that the law is on your side. Thank you.